Okay, so we're on the last phase of the Halloween face operation, and we'd like to add color and try to blend these elements in a little more convincingly. So here's how we're going to go about doing it. First off, in the layers, make sure you don't actually affect any layers that you've already created. You don't want to damage them unless it's real fine-tuning. So I'm going to go and make a layer on top of the face so that I can paint the face. I'll call it face paint. And it's a distinct layer that is going to be separate from the real pixels of the face. And next, I want to make sure I'm coloring in the lines, in between the lines. So if I took a brush right now and started spraying on face paint, there's nothing holding it back. It's just going to spray everywhere. Except it's not going to cover over those elements that are above it. And naturally I could move this behind or whatever. But what I really want to do is, I would like to color inside the lines of the selections we've already made. So before I start painting, I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to click the face layer, and it reselects all those opaque pixels that we had selected before. Nice handy fast way of doing it. So now when I paint, I'll be painting between the lines. You get the idea. And I want to also not paint over. I'm going to change the skin tone. I don't want to paint over things like the frame or the shirt or anything like that. So I can use the Quick Select tool to deselect certain areas. I'll make a nice big brush like this. And before I start using Quick Select to deselect, I want to make sure I'm on the face layer. If I don't, it won't care what it's pointed over. You have to tell it which layer you're getting it to observe the colors of. I'll zoom in here a little bit so we can see a little bit better. Hold down the Alt key, and I can pretty quickly get rid of the blue from that frame. The blue from, I want to add. I want to deselect the blue of this frame too. And maybe that little bit of the crest there. I can get in for a little bit more detail when it's necessary. Alt and deselect. Remember what I'm doing, whether it's selecting or deselecting. And I want to get rid of that shirt there too, so make the brush a little bit bigger. Deselect. So I'll ask it to deselect the shirt pretty quickly. But don't forget that part there. I'll get the neck in. I got some headphones in here, maybe I'll get rid of them too. Don't paint the headphones. So I'm getting pretty close to having a decent selection. Take a quick inspection back here. Yep, everything else is going to be okay. I can live with all the rest. The hairline could be a bit of an issue, but I can blend and delete stuff later on for that. Maybe a little bit here too. Deselect these little chunks of finger. There we go. Okay, much better. Now, I'd like to make sure I'm in this layer. As I've done this and reselected all of this stuff, I'm going to now hide the selection so it doesn't distract me from what I'm going to do next. So I'm just going to use a Control-H to hide the selection, but it's still there. I'll prove it just by spray painting. You can see that it's got just the things I wanted it to. Undo. It's still selected, it's just hidden. So now what I want to do is get a nice color of paint to give myself some skin tone, and I'm going to use the sampler tool, the eyedropper tool, to sample some of that red color from the horns, and then use my paintbrush, and I'm going to start painting it in there. Again, I'm on the face paint layer. I do not want to mess around with the layer underneath. And when I get close to the hairline, I want to be a little careful. I don't necessarily want to spray paint my hair inside there. But I will try to get over where the mouth would be. And there's that hand there. So good. Got some nice colors in there. Maybe I'll get it up into the ear. So now our trick is we want to blend this in. And we have two ways to blend a layer in with the color that it has. Way one is to use opacity. And if we slide it down less than 100%, you can see the details from underneath start to show up as we make the paint more and more transparent. I'm going to leave it on up about 92% or so just for now. The more sophisticated way to mess around with this is with the blend mode. Right now it's set to normal. But if you slide down here and try dissolve, for instance, it starts to speckle out and show some of the details underneath. Or darken is a different mode. Or multiply. And a fast way to cruise through all these different settings is to click on the title of the blend mode and tap your down arrow key and watch the results on the screen to see what you like best. Color burn, not bad. There's linear burn. You'll notice that some of them will affect only dark colors underneath and some will affect only light colors. So as I go to this one called overlay, it leaves the eyeballs sort of uncolored. White doesn't get colored, but anything that has some hue to it, something other than just white, winds up picking up the color. So it's kind of interesting, these different modes, and you could experiment with all of them. But the ones that might work best for our purposes might be multiply, maybe. Maybe it's going to be something like color burns, very dramatic. We want to find something that's kind of believable and realistic. And actually some of the ones like soft light and hard light are pretty good too, vivid light. Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what I want to use here, but I'm just going to give it something that's got a little tint to it. And maybe I'll take it up to, looks like it's going to work best when it's around multiply. Color burn's looking a little bit too heavy. Linear burn looks not bad either. And I can adjust it by going back to the opacity and saying, okay, let's let a little bit more of the underside, what's underneath, leak through a little bit more. So I've taken it to about 50% linear burn. Oops. That seems to be doing the job for us. Now, blending in the rest of this stuff, stepping back and seeing what we got. Okay, he's got color to him. There's lots more that could happen. For instance, the eyes are not looking right. It looks like there's just sort of a haze that's over top of the thing. So I'd like to poke a hole through the face paint layer, carve out the eyes a little bit. I'm going to go to the face layer and use a quick select. And remember, I've still got a selection. If I go Control H, you can still see it's all selected. Control D at any time deselects. So in the face layer now with a quick select, I'm just going to see if I can grab the eyeballs. I've got to do this carefully though. And I'll use the Alt key to sort of fine tune it. Something like that. I'm going to do it rough just so we can see. Now that I've selected the eyes, if I go back to the face paint layer and if I hit the delete key, I can poke holes through it. So suddenly the eyes look a little more dramatic. And that's kind of what we're going for. You'll notice the mouth looks a little artificial. I'm going to use Control D to get rid of the selection. The mouth is not painted so it sticks out. So if I just move it underneath the face paint layer, suddenly it starts to blend in a little bit better. Something I want to do before then though, I'm going to turn off the face paint layer. I realize the mouth doesn't really fit in because it doesn't look like it was taken with the same camera. So something I want to do with the mouth is go to Image, or rather Enhance, Adjust Lighting, and Brightness Contrast. And I'm just going to play around by taking down the contrast, and you'll notice it starts to look like it might have been taken with the same camera now. And maybe tweaking the brightness. I don't want to make it look artificial like this or too dark, but just kind of rocking it back and forth till it looks like it's fitting in pretty well with the picture, just so things match a little bit better. And we might as well do that before we put the face paint over top of it. Oh, I can see another little problem we're going to have with the face paint, that we didn't get this. So I'll just use a brush. Right mouse click brings up all the brushes that you have, and I'll just use a small brush like this to paint that same color of red right where the bear's beard was, just to see if I can keep things all the same sort of tones. And now if there's parts of the bear's mouth that I don't want to be colored, I'll just go back with the eraser tool. Again, a right mouse click allows me to use a decent sized brush, and I can use a hard edge brush here to whiten his teeth a little bit, make sure they're showing up. Anything that's black hopefully will not be affected. Well, we kind of got it with that. So we're getting closer and closer. Now I'm going to show you one more little trick, and you could spend forever doing this, but we might as well move on. I'd like to also start using this as an airbrush and blending certain things in so it looks a little more believable too. So I'm going to add one more layer, and I'm going to add shadows to what's going on here. And I'm going to paint the shadows with black. I'll click this little icon here and it defaults me back to black. And I'm going to start using this thing like it's an airbrush, and I'll show you how you can make this more convincing. The horns aren't looking quite right yet. Looks like they have to blend in a little bit better. So to get things to blend in a little bit better, I'm going to use a paintbrush tool, and I'm going to change its opacity down to act like an airbrush. So I'll take it down to about 30% or so. And I'll use a nice soft edged brush. This one is 45, that ought to do. And if there was really light coming and hitting this thing, it would be a little darker here. So I'm going to start spray painting on this part of the horn. Now, I'm spray painting and nothing's happening. I wonder if I still have a selection here. Not yet. Oh, I can select, oh, I see what's happening. Undo. Realize the horns are on top of my shadows layer. Guess I should put the shadows right up at the top. And I'll just get rid of that chunk of stuff that I sprayed and start again. So what I'm going to try to do is just put like a gentle set of shadows here. And it's hardly gentle. And I'll delete it and try one more time. I'm going to take this down to less than 30. I'll take it down to about 17%. And I find that's what really makes this look good, is when you just go really, really subtle on it. And if you want to paint in between the lines here, Control-click the horns, so it only lets you put these shadows on the horns and doesn't let you overspray and put it anywhere else. And I can use that same technique as I'm painting on the face. If I Control-click the face here, here's something else I can do with this, with those same shadows. There is my brush. Whoops, I just want to paint on the shadows layer, not the face paint. I'm going to start darkening up these eyes here to make them look a little creepier. And remember, this is sort of 17%. If I go over it more than once, it gets darker and darker still. And yeah, cheekbones are good. So let's draw some cheekbones in there so it looks a little more skeletal. And it seems to me we want to kind of blend bare mouth in there a little bit too. So I'll sort of paint over this thing a bit. But I'm painting between the lines because I've got that face paint layer to guide me. Yeah, nice and creepy. And it seems to me that we can also do a little bit more with brows and getting them to sort of fit in here a little bit. I think making the horns blend in, I'm just going to sort of paint kind of evenly right about there. Okay, so I'll take a step back and see how it's going. You could spend lots more time. I'll hide the selection, but you can see what's happening now. We're getting closer and closer to a finished product. And you can have a lot more fun with it if you want to make the hands look more gnarly. I'm just clicking, like Control-clicking that face paint layer using an airbrush. And maybe I'll make the brush a little bit bigger. We can start adding shadows to the hands here too, so they look a little more 3D, like they're popping out from behind something. Okay, so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. You can have a little bit of fun with that and see how far it takes you. Good luck. That's the 4 phases. I've taught you a ton about Photoshop. Hopefully be able to employ those and make more believable, realistic, and frightening things. Oh, and by the way, the last thing you might want to try doing is replacing that background with something a little creepier than just a plain wall. You can have some fun with that too. Good luck. We'll catch you in the next tutorial.